What's going on, everybody? This is Lady Luck here again. So I wanted to share some quick information regarding a couple questions that I received regarding NovaTech and why the ROI payments are, so small, and what's the deal with them, varying the amounts that they're paying out and all these other things. First and foremost, they have yet to really stick to what they have said regarding payments in the first place. There's no standard that they've set that they've followed through on. And the last communication that this little girl sent out was something along the lines of, because I'm not in this Ponzi scheme, I just have to reiterate that I didn't lose any money to this Ponzi scheme. And for those who may not know, NovaTech tried to scam my mother. May have to get a whole new driver's license and everything. And so I know there was 5 people that she knows that were brought into this Ponzi scheme. One of them were able to get his money back through his bank. He had to file a fraud claim with his bank's fraud department as a kind of like a chargeback. So he was able to get that. And plus, I tell everybody the amount of the money that he was able to recover was less than $1,000. And it was done within, I think, 30 days of the date of the transaction. So, there are certain stipulations with banks when it comes to chargebacks. You might want to check with your bank to see what the timely filing limit is, and how long can you go before you have to file a claim, and what is the amount, or if that's if there's a maximum amount that the bank will not provide without maybe having you go through the FDIC, perhaps, which is basically kind of like an insurance on your bank account. And with the FDIC, you're covered up to $250,000. So those are some questions you might want to consider, asking your financial institution, your bank, and asking them what options do you have with your banks. It worked for him, but they do have an investigation they have to do. It typically takes up to 21 business days, maybe up to 30 business days, depending on the situation, I guess. And they have to approve for you to get, the refund. But you also have to be able to show that the transaction came straight out of your bank account to NovaTech. So that's another option for people if you might want to, if you want to get your money back, and you might want to consider going through your institution. But keep in mind that they may have some stipulations and filing limits. As far as the time frame you have to really file that fraud claim, and then you have to factor in the timing that it might take to actually do an investigation to approve and or deny that you receive your money back. So, but either way, that's what happened, and that's why I started reporting on NovaTech, and I try my best to show information for at any point in time, especially when I'm giving factual information. And I have, like I said, a lot of questions that have come to me about why are they paying rocks and sticks, basically? Why are people getting these small payments and ROI payments but not getting paid out their requests for withdrawals? So I have always said that at the end of the day, I believe that NovaTech they either one or two things. They do not have the liquidity, and they don't have your money. They spent it, and they just don't have any money to really cover the request for your cash out, especially if you're wanting back your initial investment amount or seed money. Or they have the money, they just don't want to give it to you all. So it can be one of the two situations. They have y'all money, they're just not going to give it back. Or it's just not enough money, and they spent it, and they don't have any money to really give everybody back anything. I personally find it to be insulting, and it's like rubbing salt on the wound. If you got 50 grand in this, and then they don't want to give you back 50 grand, but then they'll be willing to give you back chump change. You can get $20 back. It's like, well, why send me $20? Explain to me why you can't give me the 50,000. Is it because you don't have the money, or is it because you're just trying to harbor it? Which one is it? So, of course, you have some of these promoters and thunkheads that's telling people that, oh, they're battling it in courts. That's why they can't send out any money to anybody, because it's being battled in courts. Even though there's no court date, court hearing, no proof, it's not on any court calendar and on a judge's calendar to show they're battling anything in courts. It could be a mediation or an arbitration. Don't know that. But if they have a mediation arbitration, you wouldn't see a court date like that unless they're mediating or arbitrating with the state or with the courts, to which they will still have a hearing scheduled to finalize whatever, agreement or arbitration agreement that they have in place. You guys saw my video yesterday where I pulled up the courthouse calendar for the Western District of Wisconsin, the U.S. District Court, which is a federal court. And you saw exactly what you should expect to see if it is a hearing that has been scheduled. There should be proof of hearings being scheduled if they're battling something in court. Okay, so I'm going to touch on modifications to orders in a hot second, but the excuse is now being given that, and this is crazy, where you just got these habitual liars just going from one excuse to another excuse, still with no evidence. But the excuse is that, well, because they're battling it in the courts, they can't really do anything, even though somehow they're sending you all these little, penny stock type payments, and then telling you all you can only, request 5%, and it must have a minimum amount in it. All this other stuff. They're doing everything to stall and to keep people from really getting their money back. Now, let's touch on the dumb excuse that somehow they're battling things in court and they can't give you all your money back. Even though they can give you money, it's just the money that the money that you're requesting is the money that they either can't give you or they don't want to give you, but then have the audacity to try to rebrand. So a frozen account and what causes it and how to unfreeze it. So frozen accounts, and I'm just going to go to the key takeaway, is a bank or investment account from which no outgoing transactions can be made. None. Account freezes are normally the result of a court order, and that would be a federal court order, and it would be signed by a judge, though they may be initiated by the financial institution itself in some cases. When an account is frozen, it is often because of money owed to another individual or business. The government can also cause an account to be frozen, such as for unpaid taxes. Account freezes are not permanent, but they generally require certain actions on the part of the account holder before they can be lifted. So as you can see, in most cases, you have to have a court order to have an account freeze activated. So you're not going to be able to do any outgoing transactions or debit transactions. So why would anyone tell you that NovaTech can't give you back your $50,000 of your seed investment or seed money, but for some reason can give you back, 5% of whatever's in your account? Not even that much. If you have a freeze, if that's the case, because if you're talking about somebody battling the courts, and that's why, very vague, dumb crap, and that's why NovaTech can't pay anybody. Okay, so is it an account frozen or their assets seized? Because either way, both of those things would be done through a court order, and those court orders would be public information. There will be documentation and evidence that will be made available to the public that anyone can look up. Period. So regardless of such, the court order would always be public information. If they have a court order with their accounts are frozen, you should not expect to see any payment whatsoever. So it's highly contradictory to say that they're battling the courts and they can't give you your $50,000, but they are paying out ROI payments, but it's sticks and rocks. You wouldn't be able to pay anything to anyone, not even $1, if this freeze order came from a court or a account freeze was initiated by a court. And then, of course, there are certain circumstances where the actual financial institution may freeze the account. Normally, if it's related to some sort of fraudulent activity, every bank has a fraud department. So they have the ability to investigate certain situations, and they will freeze it if it looks like there's some fraudulent activity or money laundering or something to that extent going on. And then the government itself, like the IRS, if you owe them money, can also cause an account to be frozen. But I would think that would also require a court order as opposed to the actual the government agency just putting in a request to have your account frozen. So this is Investopedia. So if you guys, check this out, you can research this information to see how that works, so that when people say that they can't pay you back your seed money because of blah, blah, blah with court battles, then you can ask, okay, in what context do you mean? Is it a matter of whether their account was frozen or their assets were seized? Because either of those circumstances would typically warrant a judge to sign off on an order. And that order should be public information. I should be able to pull that order up and see where a judge signed off and granted a motion for their accounts to be frozen and their assets to be seized. And that includes those e-wallets. They can literally have all of that frozen. So with a frozen account, you cannot do any debit transactions. That includes withdrawals, purchases, or transfers. Now, I'm curious to know what is the e-wallet address to where these payments are going out to all you guys, even though it's like $2-3 or something like that. Where's that money coming from? Because, like I said, if they've been ordered to not pay out anything, then that order should be filed with the court, and you can view that as a part of public information. And it would also state the date and when it was put into effect. It wouldn't just be random. It would have to be something that would have to be investigated. Evidence would have to be gathered to warrant a order to have, anyone's accounts frozen or assets seized. And then it would have a date that it is to go into effect. Most times it's usually kind of quick, and it's not like you have much time to really be notified before they decide to do it, because the whole point is to keep you from spending the darn money. But why would they not give you back $50K but turn around and give you $5? I mean, a transaction is a transaction. Doesn't matter the amount. So if there's an account that's frozen, or e-wallet even, and you're getting some form of payment, then that kind of debunks the lie that, they're not paying you back your seed money because of something with a court battle. And if, like I said, if that's the case, where's the evidence? What's the proof of that? Where's the order showing that? So, the IRS is like the perfect example to use, because they always have, people's accounts frozen, but that still will be based on a court judgment. You can see here, any creditor that has a court judgment against an individual can have that person's bank account frozen. So that would still be, a court judgment, and it would have to be signed by a federal judge, and that court document would be available for public review. Like I should be able to pull that document up to see where any judge has ordered that these Petion's or NovaTech's accounts all be frozen, then you wouldn't get any money. You would literally not see the payments that you're seeing. And that can be applied to these e-wallets. So most times when you receive that court order, it's going to have a list of the accounts and what type of accounts are included in this exclusion as far as them freezing it. All of that will be listed in the actual order. So, yet again, this goes to show how this contradictory nonsense is being put out there with no proof or evidence of such. This is probably why these same Ponzi promoters are afraid of people being legally knowledgeable, because they know that it doesn't make sense when you understand legally how that process works. They don't want people to ask them questions because they know that they're saying dumb things that make no sense. But this is why it's important to have that legal knowledge, right? So hopefully you guys can check this out. You can I just looked up, how to freeze an account. And this article came up with Investopedia. And of course, you have guidelines down here where they're showing, the differences between a levy, a credit freeze, and those types of things. So either way, that's pretty much what's going on with that. So for them to be paying you guys out something and not paying you out what you requested, to me, I think it just comes down to a matter of liquidity and them not having the money, or them not just wanting to pay people the money. If they're trying to rebrand with other people's money, guess what could happen? If they have a case that is assigned to a judge and they're so-called allegedly battling out in the courts, anyone would be able to write a letter to the judge saying, hey, this scam artist has stolen my money, X amount of dollars, and now they're trying to rebrand. And then the question will be, how the hell are they trying to rebrand if they're too busy battling things in court? And then that's the reason why they can't give people back their seed money, but no one is explaining why somehow you're still able to get back a payment of, 0.05% ROI? You understand how that doesn't make logic or common sense at all? Either you're able to pay out the money and you should be paying the amount people requested, or you can't pay any money and nobody should get a payment. But it should never be a situation where it's just blatantly hypocritical to say that, yeah, you got these little $2, $3 payments over here with this low ROI, but when it comes to you filing a request to get back your seed money or your initial investment, oh, well, they can't do that because they're battling it in courts with no proof or evidence of any of that. So just thought I would point this out, but, feel free to look this information up so you guys can see, especially when people say stuff like that, what it takes to have somebody's account frozen or asset seized. And 9 times out of 10, it will take a judge's order, which is available to the public, and you should be able to see that information as a part of, the FOIA request or the Freedom of Information Act. I mean, we have a whole law for that. So, yeah, that's that. This information here is from the Code of Federal Regulations website. And this is just regarding procedures following entry of cease and desist orders. So you guys can see here where I, got the 30-day standard from. So when you have a cease and desist order, typically you get the 30 days of the date of the order to request any judicial review, meaning you can request a hearing. That would be done in a courthouse. Okay? You have to do it within those 30 days. You can't wait 2 months later and then go to court and say, what can I do to make this right? It has to be done within 30 days. And this is all about fairness here, because no one's above the law. So you guys can look this up on the Code of Federal Regulations website. And then you see the penal code here, the enforcement code 1.175. And then you see it says procedure following entry of cease and desist order. So you can request for judicial review. Then there's an enforcement period, and then the notice. So you guys can check this out, this information out. But basically at the end of the day, once a cease order has been, like I said, written and signed and put into effect, you're given the 30 days to, request a hearing or a judicial review, which will be done in the court of law. And if you don't do it within 30 days, that's pretty much it. It becomes final, and there's no backtracking trying to, get a court to litigate a cease order that you failed to request a hearing or any judicial review within a timely filing period, which would be within 30 days. So that's how this works. All right, let me show you something else. This is from Cornell Law School. This is basically the code on ordering or requesting a modification or rescission of exclusion orders, cease and desist orders, consent orders, and seizure and forfeiture orders. So as you can see here, you guys can check out Cornell Law School online. Basically, if they were to request a modification of their cease order, or to request that it be that a rescission of these orders be put into effect, basically that they, revoke the cease order and agree to actually dismiss it or to basically nullify it. You have to have evidence and good cause to why that should be done. Or you can just prove that you decided to become compliant because that's how it works. But the petition to modify or, for rescission of the exclusion or cease and desist or consent or seizure and forfeiture, those petitions are documents that's filed with the courthouse that would also be made available to the public. So any petition that's filed, it would also warrant a court hearing. So the court hearing would be scheduled and assigned to a judge in the court, in a specific court. And then that information will be made available on the judge or the courthouse and the courthouse's calendars. And then the actual petition for the modification would be made available to the public. It will be public documentation. So this could be an option that NovaTech is doing, where they have modified or requested to modify or filed a petition to modify the cease orders. But mind you, there would have to be sufficient evidence to give way to this cease order being modified. And you're not talking about just one. They got 3 cease orders. 2 from states within the U.S. and 1 from a whole nother country. So if they were to request modifications on the cease orders, they would have to technically do all 3. Because why would you do one and not the others? And I highly doubt that they've become compliant by now. So it wouldn't be based on the fact that they've actually became compliant with what the requirements were in the original cease orders themselves. So, like I said, this is more documentation that would have to be proven. If you're going to put something like that out there, you would have to literally prove with evidence that they indeed filed a petition for modification. This is just another dumb statement that I've heard and I've had to debunk, because I don't know if it's a matter of people just not fully reading or understanding, if you don't know what to research and look up. But to make a statement saying they're battling something in the courts but not really expand on that, to me, like I said, it's not only, disingenuous, but it also comes off as if the promoter is trying to help stall on behalf of these dumb peons. Look, girl, stop stalling. You either got the money to pay people back and you're going to do that, or you don't, and you need to admit that. But you have people putting nonsense out here that can be easily debunked. If you're in a court battle for any reason with anybody, it will be scheduled with that courthouse and with that judge assigned to the case. If you filed a petition for a modification of a cease order, that document will still be made available to the public, and it will also warrant a hearing, a court hearing, which would be on the judge's calendar and the courthouse calendar. So you're putting things out, you're letting people put things out there, rather, where it's just so obvious, like, okay, there's no way that that's the case, because, like I said, you know, someone that's got this legal knowledge, they're going to question everything. But yes, that's what you're supposed to do. Because far too long, Ponzi schemes have operated where they expect you to not have any shred of common sense or logic, let alone legal knowledge. But you need to have this legal knowledge because you need to understand what to dispute when someone tells you they're battling something in court and now they can't pay anybody. But yet there are payments going out to everybody. Like, it's ridiculous. The modification document, the petition for that would actually be made available. Where is it? So these are the things that you know, I hope that you guys still decide to research or read for yourself. You know, and I always encourage you all, hey, if you need to rebuttal me, go ahead. Please debunk me. But it needs to be based on facts and evidence. If I said something that was not correct, I want to make sure I read about it and research it and correct it. So here are just more information to prove that there's no such thing as, oh, it's a court battle and no proof of that, or, you know, that they're handling the cease orders even though there's no petitions that's been filed for modification of the cease orders. These are things that are just crucial that you should be familiar with, so that these stupid scam promoters can't keep spewing out nonsense and lying and saying dumb things that they can't back up with proof or evidence. It's just crazy. So either NovaTech just don't have any money, and most people need to be asking, well, where the hell is these small little payments coming from? Because I don't understand why I can't get my $50,000 back. If anyone has gotten their money back, say something. You know, that'll be the most humane thing to do. If you've gotten your money back somehow from NovaTech, please tell somebody. At this point, you know, you have nothing to lose. Tell somebody so people can know what to do, and share the information so people can maybe take some pointers and tips from you. And then you can express how you were able to get your money back and help someone else do that. You know, that's to me the most humane thing and the easiest thing to do, because what you have to be worried about if you were able to get all your money back. You know, there are a lot of people out here hurting. They got 6 figures locked up in this stupid Ponzi scheme. Like I said, the last thing people need to be told is a bunch of BS that no one can seem to support with evidence and documentation. And I don't care if you've been to prison or jail or whatever. If you just don't understand it, you don't understand it. But stop relaying information from some dumb confidant or just coming up with stuff, expecting people to just believe it with no evidence. I at least need to follow through even when I make statements that I'm saying is factually stated. So now you guys can see why I kept saying the 30-day thing. And see why I keep saying that you can't just walk into a courthouse and demand that they see you about a cease and desist order after you have allowed 30 days to pass by where you didn't file anything. So, you know, this is something that can just be shown and proven. So hopefully this helps, and then, you know, you guys can be encouraged to challenge these things that are being said from these stupid promoters, And if they want to keep lying about things, report their behinds. Because no one owes them anything. They don't even have to know you're doing it. Just do it. I'm just sick of it. But, you can play the phone call all day and get any information out of them. And then take whatever you can gather and then file a complaint on them. Report them to the SEC and the FTC and the FBI and wherever else. And report it. So, I hope this helps. And you guys, I know it's frustrating. But like I said, please stay diligent with, the things that are being sent to you and all the suggestions that you do receive. You should be able to research and read this stuff. The way I pull it up is the same way you guys can. And that way you can be more knowledgeable and debunk things in real time. Hopefully it'll keep people from just spewing out nonsense like this, because they're going to get tired of being called out on it. But that's what needs to happen. Some level of accountability. But either way, you guys continue to stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other. And as soon as I'm done with the FBI and the one in the state of Washington complaints, I'll make sure I post up proof of that so you guys can see faith without works is dead. Can't sit around and just have faith and pray all day and do nothing else. Faith without works is dead. You got to take some form of action. All right? So that's it.